See you later, guys. Nice talking to you.
Yeah, hold on. Get back here. Get back here.
Sorry.
All right, guys. Here we are, right on time at exactly 2:00. That is not Phil Simms. Our special guest today is the one and only Boomer Esiason. How you doing, Boomer?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on. Be prepared.
He brought his props too.
I thought Duke was the only guy that was allowed with props.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that you guys didn't score a lot of goals, I guess you don't appreciate that.
Hey, I was watching your show yesterday. Do we call you Boomer from now on? Is it Boomer or is it Boomer?
I don't know what it is, man. It's early in the morning, and I'm tired, so sometimes I can screw it up. Just like you.
I watch it every morning. That's fantastic. That guy got on, the guy that was drunk or whatever, and he called you Boomer, and it's good.
Yeah, the guy from New Mexico. Yeah. Oh, boy.
Good job. All right, so you know everybody, right? You remember these guys, Ron Duguay or Ron Greshner there? Duke's is coming soon. He's making his bed right now.
Is this like a big head Facebook show? What is this?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. You guys got some big heads. Who's got the biggest head out of the three of you guys?
I think Gresh does right now, yeah.
Gresh, how big is your head?
Way too big. Nothing inside either. Yeah.
How big is it?
The last time I saw you, Boomer, was at the Super Bowl in Minnesota.
It was freezing, and I didn't want to talk to you very much.
I was running through the airport to get on a plane at that little private airport, whatever. And I was in Vegas 2.5 hours later gambling.
Perfect.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what I call living.
That's a shock, right?
Yeah.
I should be in the casino out there.
I know. Why would I be
So,
there?
Boomer, how many years, like, when did it go back that you were a Ranger fan? Where did that start?
1968, boys. So when the Madison Square Garden opened, the one that we know now, my dad worked on that building, and his company had tickets. So I grew up out in Long Island, way out east, in East Islip, and my dad used to come back in from the city, take me back out to games, usually on the weekends. And so I would catch about 6 or 7 games a year from probably 68 to about 78.
Cool.
Wow.
And your favorite player of all time is Brad Richards. Is that correct?
I know my previous radio host thought he and I were dating, but no, I got jealous of my friendship with Brad. But my favorite Ranger of all time, of course, sorry guys, none of you guys were, but Rod Gilbert, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, in those days, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was. Gresh and I were both up in the Great White North, and Rangers weren't very good until the early 70s. And when we were kids, they weren't any good. But Rod, and then it was Rod, Ratty, and Hatfield, that goal a game line, right?
Oh yeah, they were unbelievable, and they were so much fun. And I never played hockey. As a matter of fact, the closest rink to me growing up, and Dave, I don't know if any of you guys practiced there, was Comac Arena. Maybe you, Laidlaw. Do you guys practice there?
No.
I've been out there. Didn't Bill Chadwick had his hockey school there?
Right. So I would rent the ice like on a Saturday morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, back when I was like 10, 12 years old. And I'd bring all these guys. All the parents would be so mad because nobody was hockey parents back then, not like they are today. And I would always play goalie because I couldn't skate and I used to wear my snow boots. And I would actually put pillows on my shins. And I'd play goalie.
That's good.
Yeah, it was great.
Growing up in Saskatchewan, we used Sears catalogs. We did.
I wonder what Ronnie would use. Probably Playboy or something, right?
Yeah.
What'd you think, Boomer? You've been a Ranger fan for so many years, and all of a sudden Duguay comes along with the hair and everything like that. Did you like it or what?
Beat Al Sassoon. That's what I think. He was great though. He had a flair. He had he had an excitement about him. Ranger fans loved him. I mean, because he had a great personality. He would score goals. He was flamboyant without question. He was like the next grouping of like Joe Namath, Walt Frazier, and then came Duguay. But I don't want to, blow his head up. Look at him.
Yeah, Dukes, we're talking about you. Yes, Dukes, we're talking about you.
Oh, he looks like a BG.
Yeah.
Well, Boomer, speaking of
Hi, Boomer.
Hi there, Ronnie.
When
yes, I'm at the beach.
When Dukes came in, Boomer, in 77,
yeah,
nobody knew he could talk till 1980. He never said a word.
Yeah, well, he's a smart rookie then.
Well, no, he had other things that he showed us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, that saying, if you don't have something good to say, stay quiet.
Yeah.
And I was staying quiet and observing. In fact, it's funny that you say that because I was talking to Eddie Mio yesterday. He was describing. I asked him to describe Wayne Gretzky because he was there in Edmonton when he was a rookie, and I said, "What was he like in the dressing room?" He said nothing. He said all he did, he sat around, absorbed everything that was going on, and he would listen to the leaders of the team, and he was just very basically quiet. He performed. What he did on the ice is how he performed, is how he talked.
Well, what did you expect? He was 12 years old, for God's sake.
Yeah. Hey, and by the way, there's no mean that I'm describing myself as being Wayne Gretzky. I'm just saying sometimes when you're quiet, you're just paying attention. That's
There you
all.
go. There
You
you go.
were paying attention.
Yeah. We've already gone through that, right?
He was paying attention to other things.
Right.
That a little bit
Yeah.
away from ice in the rink.
Boomer, how's Gunner doing?
Gunner's doing great. Thanks for asking. So he's probably been in lockdown now for about 7 weeks. So interestingly enough, I had him on our radio show towards the end of January when the COVID-19 story first started coming out of Wuhan, China. We started shutting down planes coming in and all that. And we had Gunner on as a guest, and he was explaining the N95 mask and why he wears the mask no matter what the situation may be and how important that mask is. So that was, I think, January 24th. And probably from January 28th, January 30th or so, he's been pretty much in isolation. And he's 29 years old, but he's a business school up at Dartmouth, but he's doing it all virtually like we're doing this.
I think I saw a tweet on Twitter where he sent, the one time I saw, he just talked about you just have to man up and do what you've got to do. And he's had to battle his whole life. And it's really an inspirational story, Boomer.
You know what? How about this guy? So a new drug came out about 2 years ago for cystic fibrosis. And he was counting the amount of, because he loves playing hockey, he played high school hockey and everything, couldn't play in college, of course, but is on a team now up at Dartmouth. And he counted the days that he played hockey over the last year, and he played 62 games, I think,
Wow.
which with cystic fibrosis, that is nothing short of a miracle.
It is.
Wow.
How old is he now?
He's 29, and actually over my shoulder here somewhere, there's a picture of him on the ice proposing to his girlfriend this past President's Day,
Congratulations.
Frozen Pond. So that's how he proposed to her.
Very
Good.
nice. You
Congratulations.
had a big wedding this past summer too, didn't you? Your daughter?
Oh yeah, she
Are you
married.
talking to him yet?
Can you- I mean,
I
I can't even tell you. So Sydney, the light of my life, take her to all these Ranger games for all these years. She's probably been to 1,000 Ranger games with me and used to love going and everything else. She was in love with, of course, Dan Girardi and, Carl Hagelin. And then she tells me that she has her boyfriend in our kitchen. And I said, well, I'll be home in about 5 minutes. She goes, Dad, he plays for the Islanders. Now, I know this because I know things, right? So, and I know who it is. It's Matt. And Matt's a great kid and everything else like that. But I got to play the game. So I go into the garage. I think I either grabbed a Rick Nash or a Brad Richards jersey, put it on, and came into the house to meet Matt Martin of the Islanders. He's dating my daughter. So that's how it all started.
There you go. That's good stuff.
Boomer, what was the start of you getting on the ice and you playing yourself?
I started when I was first of all, I played in a couple of those events at MSG. With
Christopher Reeve
Foundation, but I was actually on the ice a little bit before that because I retired from football in '97, and I remember driving my kids to school, telling them that I was retiring, and they were crying on the way to school. They were in first grade in kindergarten. But I told Gunner, I said, Gunner, I told you that once I stop playing football, I'm going to go play hockey. So dropped them off, went to, I think I went to, I don't know, Skateland or somewhere. And I bought all this hockey stuff and I started skating that very day just so I could play father-son with him because we had gotten him involved. So I was 37 years old. I'm 59 now, so 22 years.
So what were your first impressions of trying to be a player, trying to skate, and to think of how we perform on the ice? What were your first impressions of it?
You know what? Because I've been watching so much, Ronnie, I had so much fun learning it and just understanding the game and appreciating the difficulties of skating backwards and sideways and starting and stopping and trying to get off the ice in 45. When you're playing a men's league, those idiots like to stay on the ice for 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. So I eat up your ice time, I'm just like, I just want to get off and get on. But I don't, it's a lot like playing quarterback, man, because, quarterback, you're in the middle of madness and there's a lot of things happening around you and you have to kind of like just instinctually just fight through things and see things and expect things and try to predict things. And I think hockey is a lot like playing quarterback in the NFL.
See, I just want to ask you a quick question about so 88, you go to the Super Bowl. Now, Gresh, Doug and I were on a team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals, right? And Tommy was on good teams. We just couldn't beat the Islanders. When that was done, Boomer, what did you think you got another crack at it? Or do you think, man, what were your memories just when that was all finished?
Dave, I worked with Dan Marino for about 10 years at CBS, and we used to lament the fact that we only won once. Right. And you don't realize how hard it is. And then to watch like somebody like Tom Brady go 9 times is ridiculous. Yeah. So the commitment that it takes and the luck I think that it takes to get there, it's to make it through 32 teams, or it's almost impossible. So I say that the Stanley Cup is the hardest because I do believe once you get there to win the 16 games for the Stanley Cup, there's nothing quite like it. But to make it through an entire NFL season healthy with all your key players is almost impossible in this day and age. And for our team, we ended up having to deal with Plan B, which was a former free agency that came right after the 88 season. And playing for the Bengals, they don't spend a lot of money in free agency. So we lost a lot of key players and never replaced them. So I never even sniffed it. I never even got close again after that 88 season.
Right.
Hey, Boomer, question, talking about going the distance. We did it in 79. One of the reasons we did is because we were so close. We're like brothers. Is that, can you create that on a football team with so many players, offense, defense? Can you do that in football?
I think, I don't know what it was like back when you were there, Ronnie. I don't know if there were as many European players as there are now playing. I know there were some. There were mostly Swedish kids that came over and stuff like that. But, you guys are pretty much homogenous. A football locker room is anything but that. And there's all sorts of people from all over the country. We do have a love for the game of football. When you're winning, there's nothing quite like it. So as a quarterback, my job was to make sure the guys that blocked for me, the offensive linemen, knew that I appreciated them and respected them. And I would take them out every Thursday night. I'd give them Christmas presents. I'd give them presents. And, after a great game, if somebody had a key block or something, there was always something in their locker for them. So I was always trying to bring the team together and make everybody feel a closeness. But when you're losing, especially if you lose in New York here, as all of us know, it could get pretty ugly and pretty nasty pretty quickly.
Boomer, did you have a plan to get into broadcasting when you're playing? Was that the goal or what?
Yeah, it was actually. When I was at the University of Maryland, I took radio, television, and film was my major, and I actually worked for a Baltimore TV station as an intern. And the Cub reporter, or the local reporter, I should say, covering all the local stuff in Baltimore back in the day, was a woman by the name of Oprah Winfrey. She was at the station doing local stories in Baltimore while I was cutting tape for a woman by the name of Gail Gardner. She was one of the original female sportscasters on ESPN. So I worked for her for a couple of years, a couple summers, and then I knew that was something that I wanted to do.
Very cool.
You know what? I'd offer this up to everyone. I saw your quarterback rating in that big year you had, Boomer, was off the chart. Good. So everybody, like when things are going well on the field or on the ice, dude, when you're scoring or Tommy, you're defending and Gresh, you got the puck, does the game slow down? Does the ball look bigger? Does the net look bigger? How's it, when you get on a roll, how's the game look?
Well, for me, the confidence level is off the charts. Like, for me, like I wanted to get that puck up to the forwards as quick as possible, right? So when I was feeling good about my game, it's like I could put that pass like right where I wanted to all the time. And conversely, when you weren't feeling good about it, it's like, oh my God, like you're almost afraid to touch the puck, right? So I agree. So the game can really change that way. Like confidence is such a big thing, and I'm assuming Boomer's the same thing with football. But it's funny how it comes and goes so quickly too.
There is a thing when you go out on the field before a football game where you're just praying to God that the ball comes off your hand the right way, that it feels right, that everything is loose and you're feeling good and you have your game plan down and you know what's going on, and then all of a sudden you get out on the field and you call play. And you go to drop back the pass, you're like, damn, did they know that play? What the hell are they doing over there? And you're just like, there are those games where you feel like they know your plays. Right. And then there are those games where you can do no wrong. And I mean, those games are just like, they're so much fun because you end up scoring a ton of points and you end up completing a lot of passes. And there's nothing quite like understanding and seeing it when it's happening and then feeling it as you guys probably have felt too, the excitement of just the feeling you can't be stopped.
You know, you've talked a lot about your show too. You talk about Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, like the preparation they put in. Has that changed over the years? How much preparation a quarterback puts into it?
You know what? A lot of it has changed. Your guys' sport has changed. Our sport has changed. The money has changed. We're talking about guys that are doing what I did back when I played. You know, they're making between $30 and $35 million a year now. Phil Simms, I think, didn't even make $10 million in his career. At 2 points in my career, I was the highest paid player in the league. One was 1987, and the other one I think was 1990 or 1991. So, and that was at the top of my career. I was making $2.7 million a year, which was good back then. But now it's between $30 and $35 million. So, I think the money has changed everybody, and I feel like I watch my son-in-law. He doesn't score a lot of goals. He runs into a lot of people, punches a lot of people, things like that. Man, but he is always working out. I mean, it's 24/7, 365. He's never stopping. None of us were like that, I don't think, when we played.
Nah, not at all.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
So, Boomer, a follow up to that. Do you think Boomer, it's too much training, more probably the mindset, the rigors that you put yourself through? You think it's too much? Because I look at hockey and it's with the young kids, they're doing it year round now. Like we used to take the summer off and go play a little bit of baseball or a little bit of whatever. Now it's year round. Do you think it's too much on these guys, young kids?
Well, the one thing about football is you can't play year round. You know, there's only so many months of the year that you can actually play the game where you're going to have enough players, put on enough, have a coach and everybody else. It's not like going out on the ice and going skating and shooting pucks and things of that nature. It's a much different type of game. But I think the reason why players are working out so much is, like I said, the money first and foremost, but they also know that they're always looking for somebody that's cheaper and better. And I don't care what anybody says in a cap sport like the NHL and the NFL, it is about the younger, cheaper players. So I think it's very important, imperative for the guys to work out as hard as they can for as long as they can and be in shape for as long as they can, because the moment they eat themselves out of the league or cheap themselves out of the league, they're going to be kicked out of the league and gone.
Well, I think too, right? Like I will speak from our vantage point watching it. I think we probably all can agree that the skill sets of today's athlete in any sport are dramatically higher, right? As a result of all the time and the coaching, ideas on nutrition. But is there, I don't know, Gresh, you think there's any imagination in our game anymore?
Well, I think a lot of the passion is out of the game. And I was watching an interview with the Ranger coach and Brian Leach. And the coach goes, well, the game is faster. And Brian goes, it should be faster. Nobody gets hooked. Pull down.
Wait, that's the truth.
I mean, I used to carry the puck up the ice when their forwards are going back. I used to hang on to their sweaters to get a little, extra little pull back.
What's amazing is that I went to, I follow Mitch Marner because he got close with Matt and my daughter when they were in Toronto together. And so they were together 2 years. So I've got to know Mitch over the last few years. So I'll go to a bunch of Toronto games when they come down just to go see him play. It is amazing how he bunny hops all over the ice and nobody can lay a finger on that kid. And that kid is about the size of Theo Fleury.
Yeah. Well, Panarin's the same, right?
Like
Panarin,
I haven't seen a player like Panarin that can pass the puck like Gretzky could.
Right. He just the vision, right?
He's just so good. He's just like
Hey, Boomer, by the way, we're asking you all these questions. Feel free to fire away at us with questions about.
Well, I got one more question for Boomer.
Yeah.
What were the worst 3 minutes of your career?
The worst 3 minutes of my career?
I was watching.
I was at the end of the 1988 Super Bowl, which would be Super Bowl 23. And thanks for bringing it up, Ronnie. I appreciate it.
Listen to me. I had met you before that, right? Ranger locker room and stuff. So when you got there, I'm a Jets Giants fan, whatever.
Right.
I was cheering for you, and I'm
there
going. If all the guys you got to be playing against
You got to say that now. He says that now. He was cheering for you.
Yeah, really. We want him to stay on, Gresh.
Yeah.
No. I'm just saying it's like one of those things where in '79 we won the first game. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Up
it was-
2-0.
It was our 3 minutes after that.
Yeah.
And I watched the game and I'm going, of all the guys you got to be playing against, you got to be playing against Montana.
Yeah, well, that's the way it works, you know. I mean, they actually had, I think they had 4 or 5 Hall of Famers on that team. We had one, Anthony Munoz, of course. I did want to ask you guys something because there was something that I noticed when Mark Messier came to the Rangers, and I don't know, you're the hockey players. I'm just a fan who loves the game and loves everything about the game. And I remember it took like 20 games that season for like the players to start to understand the way he was seeing the ice and how the players had to adjust to him doing things that I don't think the players had ever seen before. Is that,
Well, there's no question. I would think, right? Well, there's only so many of those guys too. Most of us don't get a chance to play along the way with guys like Gresh and I got to see Hall of Famers, but a lot of times they're at the end of their career.
Yeah.
So, we never saw anybody in full flight. And I think it's got to be hard too when a guy that comes from an environment like I remember watching Gretzky when he first went to LA, dude. You know, he got playing with Curry and Anderson, and now he's playing with Warren Reichel, and he's doing things right, Tommy. And these guys are going like, what the hell is that?
You know what I think a big part of it was too so I was lucky when I got to LA. Wayne got traded there about a year after I was there, and Duke was there as well. I think part of it was for me, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, just give it to Wayne. He'll just do it all, right? Because he's Wayne Gretzky. He can do everything. So it's almost like you're not wanting to do anything. You just want to get the puck to Wayne as quickly as possible so you're not making any plays. Then you sooner or later you understand that, yeah, he's a fantastic player, maybe the best player that's ever played the game, but he's not perfect either. He can't do everything out there. And, you know, if you're just going to pass him the puck all the time, the other team knows it. So you've got to do your job like you normally do. And I think that's part of it. It's not as much Mark Messier or Wayne Gretzky, the rest of the guys around him getting used to the fact you're out there with a star player like that.
Yeah, let me give you a situation with Gretz. I'm playing with Gretz in LA, and I hadn't been playing with him a whole lot because I was more third line, fourth line, more on a checking line. But I ended up there with Gretz, and I get the puck at center, move it to him. He goes up the ice, and I did what a lot of players did. Just stood there and watched him as he's going up the ice. Meanwhile, he's waiting for me to come, right?
Right.
And then he's going to feed me. And then I just stood there and watched him, and we go back to the bench. He says, Deuce, he says, I need you to follow the play. I'm looking to give you the puck. Stop watching me.
That's hilarious.
He said the opposite. He said the opposite to me. He said, Laidlaw, don't go near me.
I like that puck around when I get it.
Give me the puck.
Ron, I was going to ask you, when you were with the Rangers, who was your favorite line mate? And who did you like play off of the best?
Ron or Ron?
You.
Dukes?
Ron Righty.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about the guy in the back end. I'm only worried about the guy in the front end.
Yeah. Well, that has to be Mark Pavlich. I had just come off playing for Team Canada, showed up in training camp, and I only had a couple of weeks, and I show up there. Now I have a kind of a new environment because now you have Herb Brooks coming off winning a gold medal and his way of teaching. And then he gives me Pavlich, which I know nothing about Mark Pavlich. And if Dave will tell you, if you're trying to talk with Pav, there's not much coming out of his mouth. So we had to speak the hockey language, which was, let's just play, let's see what happens. So Herb thought that with my style, I'd be a good fit for Herbie with Pavlich, because Pavlich is the type of guy that he didn't want to dump and chase. He wanted to hold on to it and make a play. And so we clicked right away. And it was without speaking. It was just a connection that I had with Mark Pavlich. Now, having said that, I did play with Stevie Yzerman in Detroit, and I probably averaged a point a game with Stevie. Now, with Stevie, his problem early on, he was holding on to the puck a little too much because he can do that at the major junior level. So he had to figure out, because I kept going offside with Stevie Yzerman. He needed to get me the puck earlier. But once we clicked, we were really good. So I think with the Rangers, it had to been Mark Pavlich, only because when I look at my time there, I scored 40 goals with him. So Pav was great. There was no argument, nothing. It was simple. Let's just go out and play. And the little guy, he was a little guy. He played like a big guy. Love playing with him. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
What is going on with him right now? I saw a headline. I haven't read the article yet. It talks about his run from the 80 Olympics into I guess a mental facility.
Well, he got this past summer. There was an incident with a good friend of his, and he's had a number of things that if you'd written Mark's story, I'm not sure you'd write what's been written in. And as Duke would say, he's a very quiet guy. He was exposed to a tragedy when he was a kid, right? A hunting accident. He actually killed a best friend of his when he was like 13. So there are a lot of things that went on with Mark, and then, right, guys, and then he kind of dropped off the face of the earth. Like you talked, like from an alumni standpoint, and I know I talked to the guys that played with him on the Olympic team. He just kind of disappeared, and there's been some things. He got in a little bit of, so now he's in a facility as a result of some criminal charges against him. But like Duke, I'm not sure you would have ever saw that coming. Or Gresh, would you have seen?
No. I think what happened with him is that he ended up back in Minnesota, back in the woods, wanting to hunt and fish. That was his passion. But he kept away from everyone. And I think while he was there, he was just doing a lot of drinking. And he was just a little bit off. Now, people ask, did he take a lot of hits to the head? Concussions, side effects of concussions. And when I think about it, how many times, Dave, did we see him go in the corner playing big guys? His helmet would be off. It would be on the ice. Right. Why? And he wouldn't go down. His helmet would go down. He would get elbows to the head all the time. Now, that had something to do with it, or just what he went through when he was young. But he ended up in the woods. I think he was drinking a little too much. And what happened, Boomer, with his friend is that he thought his friend spiked his beer, and he clubbed him over the head, which is, a little bit off.
Right.
So because of that, he's in jail now. And, he's kind of they're keeping him there because they feel like they're protecting him because they didn't want him to go back to what he was doing. So if you read the New York Post, there's a big article there today about Mark.
Yeah, that's what I was asking because I got the alert. I didn't have a chance to read it yet.
Yeah.
And the thing is, even from the drinking aspect, he was not, to my memory, he was not a big drinker when he was playing. There's some guys, and that's like David Silk at our alumni golf outing last summer. At that stage while they were playing, Silky said if anybody had thought Mark would end up where he's ended up and not me, it would have been that would have been the more expected story. So
he was tough to play against, though.
Yeah,
I remember going to practice, and they give you colored jerseys. What you have to wear for defense, playing with the forwards. So I looked over at his jersey and his stall. I used to go over and get those D colors. I didn't really care. I wasn't playing against him because he would. It would be like, oh my God, I couldn't catch him. First of all. Yeah.
Hey, Boomer. When I disliked playing with Pav, it was in practice. When Herbie would put us through the conditioning drills, where back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Well, I would always try to hide skating next to Gresh, right? Because I could enjoy Gresh's pace.
I was slower than I looked.
Yeah. And Herbie would always correct me, says, "Dudes, you got to go skate with Pav." Well, Pav would be going 100 miles an hour, right? And I had to keep up with him after being up all night, being at Studio 54. Yeah. So, those were tough mornings, and it may have had something to do with why Herbie got bitter with me eventually and traded me away, because it was a pretty easy tell that I'd been out partying the night before.
No, you hit it really well, Dukes. Nobody knew.
Yeah, nobody knew, right? That's
no, and Herbie never knew. Herbie never.
You're the guy. You're the reason for the morning skate, by the way. The day of morning skate, which is crazy to me. So, Lays, let me ask you this: when you would go into a game, and you're a physical guy, kind of like Ronnie and Dave, and you were playing against a player of like Gretzky's ability or the star player of the opposing team, was there ever because I know they used to do this in the NFL, they can't do it anymore. They used to have bounties on guys. Buddy Ryan used to put bounties on people. Right. And guys would come out and they'd try to knock a guy out of the game. If you knocked them out of the game, they'd give you an extra $5,000 on Monday morning in front of the team, and you were like some sort of hero. And when we look back on that, you feel like it's just like idiotic now when you think about it. How about in hockey, anything like that?
I remember one of the first times we went into Edmonton to play against Gretzky. And
Is this a Semenko story?
I think it was the Semenko story.
Yeah, this is great.
Carol Vadnais, I think, was coaching. He goes, Tommy, you got to run the Gretzky. So I go, Vad was great to me and everything. I was going to do anything he said. So I go on the ice and I run Gretzky, knock him on his rear end, right? Now, and especially in the Canadian building back then, when the whistle blew, the building just went dead quiet. There was no music playing. It was like being at the ballet or something, So Glenn Saylor's coaching the Edmonton Oilers. He puts one foot up on the bench and he yells, Laidlaw, you're going home in a body bag. And the whole building can hear it. He taps Dave Semenko, who's about like 6'12". And I swear, he had a little bit of a drinking problem back then. It was like a random Tuesday night, And he hops over the board, and I swear to God, I'm looking at him like there's twigs sticking out of his hair or something, like he's out of wood. He's skating towards me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like I'm hoping he's hungover or something. He just doesn't want to fight. He's certainly not scared of me at all. So he's coming towards me. He's kind of got that look in his face like he's disgusted with me. Like he's not mad at me. He's disgusted. So I'm thinking, okay, I might survive this. Okay. And he comes over to me and he says, Tommy, are you going to hit Wayne anymore tonight? And I'm trying to get it right up in his face, make it look like I'm talking back to him. And I said, Dave, if you don't want me to hit him more tonight, I won't hit him anymore. Okay, the guys pat me on the shin pads and going, great, that's the way to stand up to a bomb. So that was the problem with going after a star player. Usually back then they had the tough guys on there so that, you could go ahead and run them. It's the same with the Islanders. You could run Bossy, you could get him, but then Clark Gillies and Bob Neischer are going to go over and have a few words with you and try to convince you not to do it anymore. So
ask Eddie Hospital.
Yeah. How about trying to take a run at Bobby Clark?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, was that after you took his stick out of your throat?
Yeah. It's like
the thing about Bobby Clark. Well, it's not funny, but my hatred for the Flyers. It's the one franchise and team that, as a professional broadcaster, I am biased against 100%. I could deal with any other team. I could deal with the Islanders. I could deal with the Devils. I could deal with anybody, but I cannot deal with the Flyers because of those Flyer teams. Yeah. So my previous radio host, Craig Carton, with me, he wanted me to have a détente with a Flyer. And I'm like, why do I need to have a sit down with an ex-Flyer from the 70s who I can't stand? I hated the guy. So of course he has me have a sit down dinner with Dave Schultz.
Oh wow!
Right in New York City. He was in town with the Flyers, and I didn't know who it was. I thought it was going to be Bobby Clark, but it turned out to be Schultz. And the guy turned out to be a great guy. He's like a great guy. And I'm like, I hate you. I can't stand you. Ruin my childhood.
He's from Saskatchewan, where I grew up. Well, close to where I grew up.
Well, I remember Pierre LaRouche told the story that so he started in Pittsburgh, right? Then he gets traded to Montreal, and Selesky was in Philly, and he gets traded to Colorado. So now Pierre's with Montreal. Anyway, they line up at the face-off, and now Selesky's talking to him. Hey, yeah. Pierre, how's it going? How you doing? He goes, no, you want to talk to me? You're going to beat the crap out of me for 5 years. Get out of here.
I remember the first game we played against Colorado when Selesky went there.
Yeah.
I almost felt bad for him.
Yeah.
Because he got hacked, kicked, beat. Whatever you could do to him, he got done to him, and he didn't do nothing. He just was like he was whimpering around the ice.
Back to talking about great players. I remember I got called up, Gresh, in '70, and Bobby was still playing for Boston. So Bobby Orr, and so I had worked at Orr's camp. I went there as a kid, and I worked there as a counselor. And we'd scored the first 2 goals. We were up like 2-0, and Bobby picks up the puck. And, the little Boston guard in the neutral zone there. And our job was kind of stay in the middle. And if everybody's picked up, you got your guy coming through the middle. So it's me and Bobby Orr. He throws a move on me, goes by and put three of the Bruins offside. He put his own guys offside. And so I was there as a kid. He comes back and whacks me on the ass and said, welcome to the NHL, kid. Holy cow.
We lost 10. We lost 10-2.
Hey, Boomer, you've in some ways, I think you can say you've been more successful after playing than you were when you were playing. I mean, that's a compliment, right? The broadcasting is done off the charts.
Yeah, it's been good, man. It's treated me well. CBS has been a good partner for me, and I will ask you guys a trivia question.
Yeah.
So when I retired, what was the first TV job I had? That's the first question I have for you.
Monday Night Football.
That's right. Okay, good answer. So I lasted 2 years on Monday Night Football. Who replaced me on Monday Night Football?
Who replaced? So that would have been
The coach. John Madden, no?
No, Madden was with Fox.
Madden was on before that.
Yeah, he was on
Once
Fox.
I tell you, you'll go, oh, yes, I remember, yes.
So what year would that be? What?
2000 or 2000.
2000.
2000.
I did 98 and 99, and I did the Rams Titans Super Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
and then I got fired right after that Super Bowl game.
Was he a receiver?
No, he was not. It's not. Nope.
No.
Chris Collingsworth. No, he was a receiver.
No, he's doing it now. So, but I would say Dennis Miller.
Dennis.
Oh, how'd that work out?
Yeah, that's the point. Yes, that's the point. So I got fired. He replaced me, and I went into radio then. I did the Monday night radio broadcast the same way that I would do the TV broadcast. It was just without the camera. So I would run into Dennis Miller. And we'd have a lot of conversation because he was just getting killed critically because that wasn't his forte. They just tried to bring a different element to the booth. They tried to make it different. And unfortunately for him, it didn't work out. For me, it worked out even better because I ended up doing that for 18 years. But then I also ended up getting the CBS NFL Today job, which I've been at now for 17 years.
Wow.
So while we're on that, the Boomer, I get a little chance to do television, not as much as you do. And I do more of the radio. I happen to love the radio, like
Oh yeah,
just that medium, and certainly not to discount the TV end of it. But your thoughts on the different medium?
You know what? I love you and Stemmer. Both Stemmer's really good on the radio. You know, he deserves a lot of credit. I think he's pretty damn good. And when Ronnie was doing the pre and post game stuff was great. I actually like the freedom of radio. You can go anywhere. It's a kind of like a medium of conscience. So wherever you are, it's kind of like what we're doing right now.
Right.
And even when there's no sports in the morning, we can manufacture just about any conversation simply because me and my partner now, Greg Giannotti, is from Long Island. We know what's going on here. We grew up here. So it's easy to manufacture conversations in that regard too, even without sports. I agree with you, Dave. I actually like radio a lot better.
Yeah.
So, Boomer, what do you think is going to happen with all the virus and all the leagues and everything? You seem like you're on top of stuff as far as the virus. And-
I think the three main leagues, the NBA, the NHL, and the MLB, are all going to try to start up here in July. That's what I think. Mid-June, July. That would be my guess. I don't have any inside information, and obviously, it's all going to decide what happens with COVID-19. We'll decide that, but I think everybody wants to get back to work. I think the politicians are pushing to get us back to as normal as we possibly can. And, you know, for those of us in this country that are sports fans, and you guys are obviously those just like I am, that kind of indicates normal. Now, what the new normal is going to be when they first open up, that will be kind of interesting to see what it's going to look like. But I hope they finish the seasons, and I hope we get a baseball season. And right now, football is expecting to go off on time. And if it doesn't go off on time, they may take the first 4 weeks of the regular season and put it at the back end of the season and then take the Super Bowl from the first week of February all the way to February 28th. So they have contingency plans too. But I think we'll see. I think we're going to see these major sports restart here probably within 6 to 8 weeks.
You know, I try to think as a player, Bill Daly, who's a fantastic guy with the National Hockey League, kind of the second in command there, was quoted last week, I think it was, saying that even if they had one or multiple positive tests for COVID-19 when the season gets going again, they still would not necessarily shut down. They continue to play. And I'm just thinking as a player, I'm thinking, like, first of all, if you're an older player, you're away from your family, you've left your wife with the kids at home, you're sequestered in a hotel if that's what happens. And now somebody comes out positive with a test. It's like, man, do you want to be doing that as a player?
Yeah, I don't think they can start and then stop again. They better not. I mean, because that would be – I think you got to treat it like an injury. You got to treat it like a flu bug. I know it's worse than that, and I understand that. I talk about this all day long. But I would say that unless somebody around the team, an older person around the team, dies from it, I don't see them stopping. I would think that they would all agree that they have to play through it, and if somebody does test positive, they got to remove them from the team.
I think they have to do. I would agree. I think there's not going to be anything perfect when you start it off, but you've got to start somewhere. You've got to have the plan, and then take it from there. Now there might be some things along the way, right, that you're going to have to address that you never thought you would. But it's it's a little bit like even the economy, right? They got to get something going here, and it'll be. Speaking of which, Boomer, how did you think the NFL draft went on?
It was awesome. It was interesting. It was interesting to see inside the players' homes. It was interesting to see the GMs and the coaches with their families, which we never see. Those guys are 16-hour-a-day guys in the NFL. The coach and the GM, they're working 16-hour days. They're crazy. That's why I never wanted to get into it, because I didn't want to put that much time and effort into it.
Right.
So see that side of it, I thought it was really cool. And the fact that 55 million people watched it for 3 days is amazing.
Right. And then, they're talking about doing the NHL draft, and talk anyways, about doing the NHL draft before they get going again. So sometime in June or something, there's talk of them having the draft early. A lot of things to work through, right? I mean, you can't have any trades, obviously, the order of the draft and all those things, because the season hasn't been completed. But I think it'd be a great idea, really. I think it's like watching, was it 55 million viewers for the NFL? Obviously, we're not going to get that for hockey, but we're going to get much more attention, right? Because there's nothing else on right now. So,
right. Speaking of the draft, Duke, where were you when you found out you got drafted by the Rangers?
That's funny.
Oh, you were at Studio 54 already?
No, I can remember that day. It was a Saturday morning, and I'm living with my parents. By the way, my son Noah. Boomer's my son.
How are you, dude?
Hey, Noah, how are you, bud?
Yeah. And so I can remember that day and the lack of buildup to the draft. There was no big anticipation where I was going to go. I had one interview with one team, which was Detroit. You spoke to your agent just a little bit, which back then it was Eagleson. So there was no big buildup. There wasn't a big show the night before. I can remember getting a knock on my door in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. It's my mom, knocks on the door. She says, Ronald, she speaks to me. Ronald is my name. She goes, you have a phone call. And I'm hungover as could be. I can remember it's Saturday, it's Friday night. I'm as hungover as could be. I pick up the phone, landline, pick up the phone. It's my agent, Billy Waters, who was with Allen Eagleson. He says, Ron, you've been drafted in the first round by the New York Rangers. And you're going to be, and he told me my contract, you're going to be making $75,000, $85,000, $100,000 bonus. And do you have any questions? I said, no. It was a 2-minute conversation. I swear to God, there was no talk about, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? We're going to negotiate. The negotiation had been done already.
Right.
And not even out of the gate. And so I can remember answering and going.
Didn't you get drafted by the Winnipeg Jets?
I did also, yeah, in the first round. So again, not even a discussion of going to Winnipeg. Nothing. That's what it was like back then. The agent, Al Eagleson, and your connection with the owner. And then the worst case, I'm talking to Lucien Deblois 3 months ago.
Cool.
And we're drafting in the first round. He's a couple before me. And I said, Lucien, how much money did you make? He says, well, I got a $200,000 signing bonus, and I got 80. I said, what? He made more money than I did, and we're both in the first round. So thanks for asking, Dave.
Yeah. How about, hey, Boomer, so you were a second-round pick, right?
I was.
Was the draft a big deal then? Or
It just started. ESPN had just started broadcasting it, but they didn't bring anybody to New York. It was done out of New York. I thought I was going to be a first rounder. It was me and Steve Young coming out that year, and the Bengals had the first overall pick in the draft. And Sam Weish was the new coach that was just hired there. So he was a former quarterback who worked under Bill Walsh out for the 49ers. So he worked me and Steve Young out, and it turned out that Steve Young had a pre-draft deal with the Bengals, and backed out and signed with the LA Express of the USFL back then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought I was the next one. So I thought I was going to be the first overall draft pick. They traded it, and they ended up having 3 picks in the first round. There were 28 teams. So they had 3 picks in the first 28, and not one of them was me. And I just kept dropping to pick number 38, the 10th pick in the second round. And Sam Weish called me. He goes, Boomer, we'd like to have you come as quarterback. I said, you couldn't have called me 3 hours earlier? Maybe $2 million earlier, because that's basically what I lost.
right.
It was a tough day for me, but yet, it's not about your first contract anyway, right, Ronnie? It's always about your second one.
That's it.
Yeah.
Hey, Boomer, my son, who played a lot of hockey, played all the sports, but he loves football, and he just has a question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure. Go ahead, Noah.
I was just wanted to get your opinion on Gronkowski coming out of retirement and meeting up with Tom Brady down in Tampa.
I think it's awesome. I think it's great. I think it's great for football. I think it's great for the interest of everything. You know, he's a goofball.
Yeah.
You know, we've all played with guys like him. You know, you got to have. It takes all kinds of guys in the locker room, and he's like, he's the party guy. He's like your dad used to be. You know, that everybody wants to hang out with.
That's right. That's right. That's good.
Yeah.
The draft is funny though. Thinking back to the memories, for me, the draft. I was drafted in 1978 as a 20-year-old draft then, and nobody ever talked to me. I ended up being a 6th-round draft pick. I was working at a horse farm in Guelph, Ontario, cleaning out the stalls. And the Rangers, when they drafted me, called my parents' farm. My father then called the farm I was working at, called me up to the farmhouse, and he said, "The Rangers just called you, get drafted in the 6th round." I said, "What do I do now?" He said, "Get back out there and finish cleaning." You know what? That was my draft pick. That was it. There was no discussion about contract or nothing. It was like, get back up to college and finish it out. So,
Hey, Gresh, were you in Good Soil? Where were you?
I was in a bar in Long Beach.
Oh,
Matt,
were you really?
I was in a bar in Long Beach with a couple guys that were. We had a guy named Richard Sorkin was our lawyer.
Yeah. How'd that work out?
Stole all the money
Yeah.
from Nystrom and Howitt and myself and a bunch of guys. So, but I mean, I was in a bar and I didn't know the draft was even that day. I thought it was already done. So I get back like 3:00 in the morning to this house and he goes, "You were drafted by the Rangers." I said, "Perfect." He just told me the place I was at just said the Rangers moved there for training camp.
Yeah, they trained down in Long Beach. That's right.
They moved that year, that summer. They moved. I
Right.
mean, Dave
just
got
for you,
there.
Gus. Just for you.
Yeah.
They did. Well, they knew I was going to be there that afternoon. So
Yeah.
They knew you'd know all the bars.
I was in a bar called Chauncey's. Imagine that.
Oh, yeah. The one on the beach?
What the hell were you doing there? Why were you in New York?
My lawyer was in Rockville Center.
Okay.
So I came down and there was a bunch of us. And so they talked me into going drinking. I didn't want to go. They talked me into it. We went to a bar called Chauncey's, which was
Right on the beach.
Yeah, it was the only bar on the beach in Long Beach.
Right.
It was great.
So, Boomer, your partner Gio there does a lot of whining. Can we get him straightened away?
I'm trying, man. I'm trying, but he's a funny guy. He actually very self-deprecating, which is really nice about him. He's extremely humble, and he's very talented, and he's different than my previous partner because my previous partner was out of his mind, and we all know that. And he'll be back someday, and I wouldn't be surprised if someday he comes back on WFAN, and I would welcome him back because he's paid his debt to society by that time. But my new partner is, he's a new father. He's got a 2-year-old. He's got a great South Shore, Long Island kind of sense of humor, which I can totally play off of, and it's been a great fit the last 2 years.
Yeah, he's gotten funnier and funnier. It's like he's coming into his own more. It seems like he's more comfortable. He's funny.
More relaxed. He's more relaxed, and certainly he was really good prior to getting with me, but it just took him a while to figure out me and to figure out what to say to me and not worry about me like jumping on him or trying to go fight him or something like that. I don't know. People have these things in their head about things, and it just takes a while to you fight through those things.
The funniest guy's got to be Eddie though, when he's got those little buttons he pushes.
Oh man, he is timeless, man, timeless. He's got these little drops. I don't know where he gets them all from.
Yeah,
but he has them like right in the back of his head, and he knows where they are, and it seems like he's got the perfect timing.
And he'll put certain ones together too that you may have said the words, but he'll put a bunch of words together that weren't meant to go together, right? And
makes them totally out of context, which is what makes him really funny.
Yeah, he's good. He's excellent.
Yeah.
Hey, Boomer, a lot of our listeners right now are Ranger fans, and they're anxious for the season to start. I'm sure they would love to get your thoughts on what you think about this current team.
You know what? I like where the team was. I like how it was coming together at the end. And I listen a lot to Dave, and when he's doing the games, he says a lot of very good things that I can see or I don't see and I miss. There are a couple of players I worry about, whether or not they're long-term solutions or long-term answers. Like Tony D'Angelo, for instance. I wasn't a big fan of his last year, but then this year, with the offensive output and everything, I really thought that he grew into a legitimate scoring defenseman, which we haven't really had for a while now. So I hope that they re-sign him and keep him and everything. So I was glad to see that. And that trade worked out. That trade really worked out for us when you look at it now. But then I worry about guys like Pavel Buchnevich. What is he going to be? I have no idea what he's going to be. And I know that they have to move money around, and I don't know what's going to happen to the salary cap next year if they don't play this year with everything that goes on in the NHL. So we may end up losing a few of the players. But I kind of like what Jeff has done here, I like Chris Drury too. I think Chris Drury is a guy that's an unseen, kind of unheard guy. He's always in the background, but I'm sure he and Jeff are very close, making a lot of decisions on these players.
Yeah, do you find that the team is when you look at teams playing, is a team hard to play against? Do you think that they're physical enough? There's enough toughness on this team?
That's a good question. I would say there isn't a lot of toughness, but I think Mika's become a superstar. Chris Kreider has really finally come into his own. I even think he has even more of a ceiling. I think he can score more goals if he could, if he really wanted to. What we need now is we got to have somebody who can play with Panarin on the wing. As much as Jesper Fast, he's not the guy. How many times does the puck bounce off of his stick when it's put right on his stick right in front of the net? So we got to find that guy, and it should be like Buchnevich or somebody else with a really high-end talent with the hands to be able to handle some of the passes that Panarin's throwing. So the one thing I will say is Panarin has been 10 times better than advertised, and will go down if he continues to play like this. One of the great all-time free agents the New York Rangers have ever signed.
Yeah, there's another Long Island kid's pretty good. Fox is a pretty good player, Boomer.
Yeah, he sees the ice pretty good. He's a lot better than I thought he was going to be, and he's, what he is, as you guys know, as defenseman, he is poised with that puck.
Oh yeah.
There's so many times where he starts and stops and doesn't throw the puck away. Like last year, Tony D'Angelo would throw the puck away a lot. And it'd end up in front of the net, in front of, Henrik or whoever was playing goal for us. But at the end of the day, when you watch Fox start, stop, he'll send it back behind the net. He very rarely ever makes a careless pass in his own zone, which is great.
Yeah. The importance of coaching. What are your thoughts on Coach Quinn?
I like Quinn. I think he's really done a good job. And for me as a fan for all these years, and I try not to think of it as an ex-athlete, I want to hear what he has to say. And I think he's really honest, which I appreciate as a fan. Now, I don't think he embarrasses anybody. I think he just speaks his hockey language. He was a player. He knows that he's got a young team and that there are going to be mistakes. I actually like him as a coach, and hopefully this team is going to mature and he's going to have a nice long run here.
I like him a lot too. You know what? I hope one thing happens. I hope they can convince. Obviously, they're not going to do it this year, but I hope they convince Henrik to move on someplace. I would. They've got to play those two young kids.
100%. They have to play them both. And the thing for me is, I know that Matt Zuccarello went off in a Norwegian newspaper last week.
Yeah.
And I understand he took less to stay with the Rangers, so he's probably brokenhearted. I get it. I get the emotion of it all because we all played. Nobody wants to be traded. Nobody wants to, be treated the way that he feels like he was treated. But, as I understand it, they went to Henrik 2 years ago and told him, look, this is what we're doing. Do you want to stay here, or would you like us to try to move you as well? And he said he wanted to stay. So as a Ranger fan, I'll always love the fact that he wants to stay in our jersey. But I also know that right now, given the fact that we have two really outstanding young goalies, he becomes a cap crunch, and it causes us probably to lose maybe a player or two that we would normally keep. So maybe they buy him out. I don't know. I know that I think they tried to move him at this year's trade deadline, and I don't think necessarily anybody really wanted him. So it's
Did they try to trade him?
Say again?
Did you think they tried to trade him?
I think that they made calls to see if anybody would want him. I would love nothing better than for Henrik Lundqvist to win a Stanley Cup with any team out there other than the Flyers. Yeah. Okay, so he can go anywhere. He can go to the Islanders. He can go to the Devils. I don't really care. I'd like to see him win a Stanley Cup, but I know because of the youth behind him and how good these two young goalies are, man, this Shesterkin kid is unbelievable.
Really?
I
Yeah.
do not believe how good he was, how good he became.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I think there's no question that Shesterkin looks like he's a player. He's 11 games into his NHL career. Georgiev's had a year or so under his belt. I think, unfortunately, to me, Henrik is one of those superstars that has stayed in one franchise and was as important to the franchise as anyone.
Yeah.
Listen, the 10 or 11 out of 12 years we made the playoffs, I used to chuckle a little bit when people would suggest that his career would never be validated until he won a cup. Well, let me tell you something. We don't even have a chance to cup without him. So, but it is, you get to a certain point, you make a good point about the business end of it. And I know it is a two-way conversation. Unlike most of us in our career, we're never privy to where our next step might be in the league, right? So when at this particular point, and I respect that, I know the management now will continue to involve him in a conversation, and I think he's owed that. But that being said, as you mentioned, Boomer, he was asked, he was offered options, and he's made his decisions so far the way he has. So I think it's been a very fair thing, and however it plays out, I think Henrik will have a say in it.
You guys know how Brett Favre basically says that, the Packers screwed Aaron Rodgers because they drafted Jordan Love in the first round and they traded up to get him. And Brett is saying, they owe, Aaron Rodgers a discussion about who they're going to draft. And my point is, no, they don't.
No,
No, they don't. They have to take care of their business the way that they see fit.
Absolutely.
And I know they went to Henrik 2 years ago and told him what they were going to do. That to me shows the respect that they have for him by doing that 2 years ago. But now here we are 2 years later, and times change. His jersey's going to the rafters. We all know that, and it's going to be an amazing night. And Mark Messier is going to be crying, and we're all going to be crying with him and everything else. And it's going to be beautiful. But in reality, you have to make tough decisions. And we have two young, cheap goalies who can play. How many teams can say that in the NHL?
Yeah.
Well, I would only say one last point, Tom. I don't know if you guys would agree. How many times have we seen young goaltenders come into the league and turn it upside down and never be heard from again?
Yeah, but I don't. Do you think that's what these two guys? So I said,
I for sure, Shesterkin. I don't think that.
Yeah,
I don't. But for me, there's still a body of work yet to really kind of validate what we think we all know.
Oh yeah. Well, there's going to be ups and downs too, right? He's still a young kid, right? So he's going great right now. If it becomes his job, his full-time job, can he handle that at first? Does he go through some tough times? I'm assuming he will go through tough times. Yeah.
Man, he is so quiet in net, man. When I watch quarterbacks, I want to see their feet in the pocket. I want to see if they're sudden with their movements or are they quiet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And when I see both Georgiev and Shesterkin, I see two guys that are very quiet in net. And are, pole to pole or post to post are about as quick as cats, and they can both handle the puck. It was a lot, like that was the one thing about Henrik that I would always say. He just can't handle the puck. And if you could just throw it behind the net and make him go get it, that's where that was the struggle part of his game. Right. So, these two guys are going to make it a lot, and you guys would know this better than I would. They're going to make it a lot easier on their defensemen clearing the puck.
Absolutely. So, Boomer, what happened in New England this coming year? Was it Tom Brady or was it Bill Belichick that made him win?
It was Tom Brady wanted to get paid, and Bill Belichick has a budget, and Bill Belichick says, here's what we believe you're worth. And we have a $13.5 million salary cap hit on the schedule this year because of the money that we've already paid you. So we'll pay you $17 million or whatever this year, but we're not going to give you $25 to $30 million. And Tampa Bay was basically – out there, they had plenty of money to spend, and he got the $60 million that he wanted. And I think he's going to have some freedom, but he's also going to find out that he's playing for a different type of coach. And as much as I love Bruce Arians, he's not Bill Belichick. But Bill Belichick would be like Mike Keenan. He'd be a pain in the ass to play for, or Herb Brooks for that matter. He'd be really, really tough to play for. Bruce Arians a little bit more flamboyant, a little bit more, he's got a personality, a little bit laid back, easy going. So that's going to be interesting to see how the Hall of Famer plays under those conditions in that environment.
Does New England fall apart now, or are they still all right?
No, I think they're going to be. I think they'll still be good. They have one of the better defenses last year. Andy Dalton just got cut from Cincinnati, so I think that he would probably go to Jacksonville because his former offensive coordinator in Cincinnati is now down in Jacksonville. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bill Belichick took a flyer on Andy Dalton and brought him in there just to give Jarrett Stidham a little bit of competition from an established veteran. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. But I was happy to see that Cincinnati finally cut loose of Andy Dalton after 9 years and have given the reins now to Joe Burrow, which is what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember when Bill Belichick came out to practice?
No, when?
That had to be probably 82, 83.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he came
Wow.
out to he actually put on the blades after, and then we went over to the mug and ale after. Drank about 12 beers and drove home. So there you go.
So was he coaching for the Giants then, right?
Yeah, he was like a specialty coach, whatever he was.
Special teams, or maybe a graduate,
something like that. He was
like that, one of those guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Boomer,
Funny
the
is
show last week, you made really good friends with the Lombardi family.
How's that?
Was it Mike Lombardi that was getting all over you for your comments?
Oh, yeah. So he's no relation to Vince Lombardi. So
I thought, but wasn't his son coaching or something?
No.
Oh,
So
I thought it was.
Lombardi's a former general manager, and he does some radio podcasts, stuff like this, and they curse a lot and all this other stuff. And I just got a little upset with him because I thought that he brought to light injuries that Tua Tagovailoa did not suffer from. And leading into the draft in the NFL, there's all this misinformation out there, and you just want it to be accurate. And the kid's got a lot of injuries anyway. And I wanted the Dolphins to take him, and I thought they should have taken him, and they did. But he was talking about injuries that I didn't believe he had, and I just thought that was crossing the line. So I took issue with him, and then, of course, he started F-bombing me on his podcast. So what can I tell you? So I'll always take the side of the player leading into the draft because, my draft day wasn't as great as some of some other guys, but certainly I just felt like it was wrong.
There's a lot of tough guys out in social media, right?
Oh yeah.
Well, listen, Boom. I know you've been begging to come on the show for the last couple of weeks now, so I hope you're happy we finally got you on the show.
Right? Come on, guys. I appreciate you guys asking me. I really do. It means a lot.
Great. Thanks.
Great to have you guys. We're here every Thursday from now on. All right. Just before we forget, too, now we're having a contest here, everybody. We're trying to find a name for the show. So the winner, if it's from one of our listeners here, next week we're going to try to set it up and get you on the show with us too. So Boomer will not be here, so his big head will not be taking up all the space. But you can catch him every morning on WFAN at 6 a.m. Right? You start at 6 a.m.
6 to 10 every day, boys.
Okay. Thanks, Boomer. Great to see you. See you guys.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Boomer. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on.
See you guys.
Yeah.